r/AskReddit. What made your ex the crazy ex? I was 17 when I moved in with a 24-year-old guy I had been dating for a couple of months. After about 1 to 2 months of living together, I had mostly lost my chances to keep in touch with my family and friends. I couldn't meet anyone without his presence. I once answered my cell phone when my mom called to say hi and blabber about something pointless. In the beginning of the phone call, I made the mistake of going out for a smoke. When I had finished the phone call and went back in, I got a good beating for having shit to hide. I didn't have permission even go for a walk or to the grocery store alone. I lived with him for nearly a year. I don't know why I stayed for so long. Maybe I was too scared to leave, too embarrassed to admit to my family and friends that I had made a bad decision when I started going out with him in the first place. One time he called me to tell me that he had been caught on the highway speeding, on speed, and having a race with the police. He said he would be getting home from jail the next morning. I instantly called my mother, who then would spend the next night with me gathering my shit in her car and taking me back home. I got some super angry and sometimes begging phone calls from him for the next few weeks, but I never saw him again. I have had several boyfriends after him, but in those relationships I believe I was the crazy one. Edit. I hope this doesn't get all messed up. I'm new to this. All this attention. Oh my. Thanks for all the comments. However, this particular relationship is really nothing more than a distant memory. It happened over 10 years ago. I believe I was the crazy one. I cannot blame one particular person for my mental problems. I'm not angry or bitter to him. Some of you asked for more dirt, but I can't think of any individual little stories to tell, nor do I have the energy to share the whole story of my adulthood. I also don't think anyone would find it very interesting. I'm not a very stable person, never been. Mostly I have kept my problems to myself and tried my best not to bother other people. I've written this in some other threads, so here comes the copy paste. Late spring 2013, I meet this incredibly beautiful woman at an open air party. We dance, we kiss and we laugh a lot, and I'm loving it. I've never felt such a deep connection with someone I just met. Anyways, later in the night the atmosphere at the party gets tense and some people begin to fight. Somehow I get dragged in the middle of it, and by the time I manage to get out she is gone. Probably ran away scared. I look everywhere. I try to find out if someone at the party knows her, but no one seems to. So just knowing her first name in a city with 1.5 million inhabitants, I go home sad as fuck, sure to never see her again. Fast forward to the end of August. It's 2 AM and I can't sleep, so I decide to go for a run, because it's the only thing that calms me when I'm nervous. Halfway into the run someone calls my name. I stop. I look back and there she is, seated on a bench smiling at me. She tells me she tried everything to find me, but with the little information she had there was nothing to do. I invite her to my place. She accepts. Fast forward to the beginning of December. We spend most of our free time together. She rarely sleeps at her place anymore, and we still don't believe how lucky we are to have found each other. I have to go through a lot of shit keeping a full-time job and flying twice a month back home to help out my family that is in need, and she's always there for me. But the more I get to know her, and the more I feel something is wrong. She never talks about her past and some days her mind seems focused elsewhere. Often I wake up at night and I find her awake, sitting on the bed with the bedside table lamp on, apparently doing nothing. She tells me that she's thinking, because her head is full of knots she's trying to untie. One morning she's late for work, and she rushes out forgetting to switch her laptop off. I'm curious and worried, so I go through her stuff, but I find nothing except for a folder with my name on it. It contains all the pictures we took in these months, some poems and another folder. I open that folder and it's full of videos. The more I see the less I believe. They are all videos of me sleeping, and they are creepy as fuck. I freak out. I call in sick at work and I spend the day watching those fucking sick videos waiting for her to come home. Hours later, once she is home, I tell her everything and ask for explanations. She doesn't know what to say, and she gets angrier and angrier. I ask her to leave, and she attacks me, leaving me with the left side of my face and neck deeply scratched, and in the meanwhile trashes my apartment. Then she takes her stuff and disappears. I call the police and tell them what has happened. They come over to collect evidence, and a couple of days later they let me know that she has a long history of records for stalking and violent behaviors, and in the past she has been hospitalized twice for mental and behavior disorders. A couple of weeks later, while cleaning my bedroom, I found a knife hidden between the mattress and the bed bases. The girl is nowhere to be found. She never went back to work, and her roommate has not seen her since that day. Oh Christ, I'm too late for a thread I should own. Okay, everyone I've known, everyone I have ever met knows I attract and am attracted to crazy women. Mentally unbalanced, bipolar crazy women. I myself am certified, so it's nice to have someone with a gear or cog loose who knows what it's like. However, this ultimately ends in me being stabbed. Let's go back to the 4 craziest, and I hope no one I know reads this. It'd give me away in a heartbeat. Most recent, we'll call Lana. Outright abusive. I was tortured as a child, so I didn't get it. The fact that I was being abused. Screamed unendingly at me to vent out her frustrations, and never could understand that if she would just learn to tell the truth, life would be so much better for her, and dear friends would return. But the ego and the image were too important. Oh, she fucked other guys, but for some reason in the moment I believed her. She always had a perfect explanation for everything. Hard for your friends to respect you when they see it. Anyway, we get back from SF for an audition for American Idol. Bombs like fuck. She quit college and was lying to her family about everything in her life. I was moronic enough to think I was the one person she could be open and honest with. I was, but she wasn't. Spent 3 days at my place trying to unwind before she went home, and I said something to try and make her feel better, and she insulted me on a very personal level. I told her to leave. She told me to go to my room and calm down. Long story short, when she went out of the room, I took all her shit outside, told her she went outside, came back inside. I told her she wasn't welcome, and she said, "You wanna talk to me? I will fucking cut you." So things kind of escalated quickly. I barred myself in my room until the cops got there, while she tried to chop through my door with a cleaver she pulled out of the kitchen, and when I saw it was when I hightailed. So this was outright The Shining level shit, but I tried to play it off like crazy shit happens to everybody, but it doesn't. Because of the previous 3. The one before her, let's call Becky, knew her for years, had a thing for her because she was broken, an alcoholic and a true dyed in the wool. This isn't fucking funny nymphomanic. Anything that wasn't nailed down level. I have a thing my friends call broken winged bird syndrome. It gets me into so much shit. We had been floating in and out of FWB to relationship whatever for a while, and I knew I couldn't keep trying to deal with her being unfaithful. She went to SF, then San Jose, did drugs and tried hooking, got addicted to meth, pawned her 3 fucking kids on her parents, and basically spiraled down. Called me out of desperation when the pimp almost beat her to death. I got her to come to my house, wired enough, then told her we'd fix everything together she needed before she went, and explained everything in detail to her parents. In truth, which they deserved. Out of all this, I wanted 2 things that night. I told her I had 2 rules. 1. No more drinking, cause she had a lot to drink just driving up from San Jose, and she had to try and get some sleep. She was coming down of being up on meth for like a week solid. She broke the rules, gulping down an entire 5th from my cabinet while I took a whiz, and I told her there were no more chances and to get out. She went raving mad. Finally, when I told her if she tried to drive instead of sleeping it off in her car I'd call the cops for her own good, she chased me out into the street and in circles with a carving knife she pulled from behind her backseat. Cops showed up, took her away. She tried to apologize and make it better months later when she found my new number, but I'm not that stupid. Before her was, let's call her Carrie. She changed my life. I proposed, she accepted, we were happy, and I found out there were exactly 3 of my friends she didn't fuck on the side. 7 in a year. I lost nearly all of my friends, and friends who stuck by their side, which was horrendously fucked up. But when I found out, and found out with proof, hard proof, I called her names which applied. While yelling. Didn't do anything to her, but had a mind to tell her what she was. She broke a wine bottle across the kitchen table and carved up my scalp like a fish. She actually got away to another state. Then there was Kelsey. Her real name. Cause she's either dead or untraceable. She had a lot of problems. Her parents were shit. She had no skills, no education, no self-esteem, and I loved her and wanted to help her more than anything else in the world. She was so masochistic she carved up herself with a knife, including down there. She was in and out of mental institutions for a long time, and I finally knew no matter what, I couldn't keep supporting her anymore. It was too much. Even though I loved her, I had to break it off. I waited till she could come home to tell her. Big mistake. She went suicidal homicidal, and I took a straight blade deep in the thigh. It hurt like a bitch. Seriously fucked me up. They came and got her, and I held her down until they did. Broke my heart, even while getting stabbed. Honorable mention who I'll call Mallory. She slept with my best friend to get to me the night I met her. Told me so the next day when it didn't work. Should have been enough to never talk to her, but oh, she was so passionate. I went to her house and she started pouring drinks down my throat like there was no tomorrow and obsessing about the 2 of us. Outright crazy things no rational person would ever think or say. For 5 days she kept me drunk as a skunk and would have for longer if I didn't wake up and smell the turbocharged crazy exhaust. First day she declared we were together. Second day she planned our first anniversary. You have to understand she was dead smoking hot, with huge voluptuous tits and an amazing sense of humor, so I was so confused. Third day I was at her house, she said we were moving in together. Fourth day we were going to get married. Fifth day we were going to name our first daughter Gloria. That did it. I told her I was going to sober up and leave, that I had had enough. I didn't agree, and don't know what I said to make her think I was okay with any of it, and wanted to leave before any more misunderstandings happened. While I sat in the kitchen, my head in my hands, she pulled out a gun, a 9mm revolver, and cleaned it in front of me. Told me all about how she was a dead shot with it, and she had ammo to spare, and had a sheriff once tell her things. I didn't care, wasn't intimidated into sticking around at least, and left. Told her the ride was over, we didn't fit. 3 o'clock in the morning, that same night, my doorbell rang. I walked over, opened the door with her standing there, her hand behind her back, sobbing, looking me dead in the eye, and all I thought to say was, "Oh fuck, you not gonna fucking shoot me, are ya?" I talked her down, calmed the situation, sent her home, and moved. All my exes are the crazy exes, but these are just a taste of the ones so crazy they'll kill you, which really makes them stick out. Most people only ever have one. I've had 5 try to kill me. Anyway, it's too late for anyone to read this, but I saw it and thought I should saw something at least. Man, where do I even start? When I met her, she seemed like a somewhat normal early 20-something. She liked to party, maybe drank more than she should, seemed a little wild, but hey, what 22-year-old guy wasn't into that sort of thing? But then the crazy started leaking out. Turns out she had been arrested for a drunk in public a few years before we had met. Okay, no big deal. Shit happens. Oh, wait, no, she's been arrested multiple times for dip and had an aggravated DUI. Awesome. This came out after we had gone out for drinks and whatnot a few times when she had driven. But whatever, ain't my license on the line, but I did start driving more when we went out. Little bit down the line, turns out she takes some medication for anxiety. Oh, okay, I mean, whatever, I know a lot of people who take benzos. Wait, no, actually, she's on a cocktail of anti-anxiety drugs, antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and who knows what else. Oh, and she sells Norcos for her dad. Sell meaning eats a lot of them and sells some of them to her junkie friends. Okay, I mean, I'm not super down with that, but I'm not really in a situation to be telling her what to do. I expressed my dislike of it, and she said she'd stop. Why was she on all of these drugs, might you ask? Turns out she was in a horrendous car accident when she was 19 in which her mom and another person died right in front of her, and she sustained life-threatening injuries, including the loss of some of her organs, including one of her kidneys. She had scars, but had always sidestepped the questions, saying something about an operation she had had when she was younger. But yeah, she's running on one kidney while eating drugs and drinking like a friend. Great, just great. Needless to say, there were plenty of late night drunken fights about who knows what and her flying off the handle because, well, she was, for all intents and purposes, crazy, whether it was because of the drugs or because of whatever demons the car wreck had created in her mind. The final straw came when she disappeared from her house one night, blackout drunk. I wasn't with her, but her roommate called me, asking if I knew where she was. I told her I hadn't talked to her in a few hours, tried to call and text her multiple times, but I got nothing. I was worried, but didn't have any recourse, so I went to sleep. I wake up to my doorbell ringing at 9 AM. It's her. She had gotten dropped off by her dad. She reels off this story about how she had gone out with a friend who was driving her car, and they got stuck and had to get the car towed. She lived a little bit out in the country, so this kinda made sense. It was a Saturday, so she wasn't going to be able to get her car out of the tow lot until Monday. Well, shitty, but okay. Monday morning rolls around, she still doesn't have her car, and asks for a ride to work. No problem. Next day, same thing, needs a ride, no big deal. She says that she's having some problem getting her car out of the lot because of some mix-up at the DMV or something, but hopefully it'll get lined out soon. A week later, after driving her to work and picking her up most days, I'm hanging out at a party and my friend asks me if I was gonna tell him about Erin's DUI. What? My friend worked with a neighbor of the girl's dad and had gotten the full story. Turns out she had gotten blacked out drunk and probably eaten a bunch of drugs and drove out of her house, took out a fence and crashed her car into someone's barn. Totaled her car, got arrested and spent the night in the drunk tank. Got picked up and dropped off at my house in the morning. She'd been lying to me for about 2 weeks straight at that point. Needless to say, I confronted her about it and broke it off. Finally got around to going to couples therapy after talking about it and talking about it forever. It was mostly me pushing us there, but she would say she wanted to too. So we are both kinda broke and decide to go to see a graduate student. That was like $25 a session. First session. Get there, go through introductions, talk about what we want to work on, and then the therapist asks about our fighting, and specifically if there's been any physical stuff. Kinda brush it off, and give it a we'll deal with that sometime soon. In a very good mood, because I sincerely feel like this could be something that will finally allow us to get a leg up on all the garbage, and if nothing else it'll be somewhere that we can feel free to talk about stuff impartially, etc. So session is over, and we walk out into the lobby, and I can tell something is wrong. She's charging in front of me, and has that "you're gonna hear about something" as soon as we can get away from people body language. Barely make it out to the street before she's screaming at me, her face is red, and she's accusing me of wanting to fuck the therapist. I know it. I could see how you were leaning towards her on the couch and smiling while you talked to her. You didn't even look at me. I could tell. Immediately I'm just speechless. She's accused me of this before, when there was absolutely no evidence, but this is on a new level. I don't have any way to explain or rationalize what I was doing in a way that could talk her down, because I was leaning in and in a good mood, because we were finally doing something that was positive and a step towards something good. You know, because sane, rational people are in good moods when they are doing good things for themselves and taking steps forward. Doesn't matter, she just gets more and more irate, and finally just stops talking to me or letting me even speak. Just keeps repeating it over and over again. At this point I was just so past being able to cleaning sort of what was going on that I sort of start to dissociate and give up even trying to conjure up the energy to fight this. She takes off, leaves me behind, and I'm sitting at a bus stop by myself with traffic going by, just shaking my head and smiling. Figured out that she probably got triggered by the question about past abuse and couldn't handle taking responsibility for her abusive behavior, and the whole invention by her of my wanting to cheat was just throwing a hand grenade in the middle of the entire thing. And it worked. I'll give her credit for that. I became the crazy ex because I said I love you first after dating 2 months. It was in response to him going out drinking. I said, be safe, love you. I said it over a text and he didn't respond, so I waited until the next day, sent a text in the morning to see how the party was, and didn't get a response. Didn't think much of it at the time because I knew he had to work that day and we had plans to hang out that night. He was supposed to come over to my parents' house to watch movies. My parents went out of town and I was house sitting for a week. He didn't call or text to say he wasn't coming over, and when I called he didn't answer. So at this point, I start freaking out because he was out drinking the night before and hadn't heard from him at all. I sent a text to one of his buddies to ask if he was okay, and his buddy said he hadn't seen him since the party and that he left before my ex did. I continued to freak out more and decided I'd go to his job at Wendy's to make sure he showed up to work that morning. I asked the shift manager there at the time if my ex had come into work that morning, and they said he hadn't. I asked if he called off or just didn't show, and they said he didn't show, nor did he answer his phone when they tried to call him. So I continued to freak out. I explained to her that he was out partying the night before and hadn't responded to me since. I left her my number in case he showed up or called them or something. I then decided to go drive by the house he was partying at, which was about a 20-minute drive from where I lived, and another 5 minutes further was his house. I drove past the house, didn't see his car, and took the route he would have taken to go home, which was out in the middle of nowhere because Idaho. I didn't see his car off on the side of the road, like I was imagining I'd find, and when I got to his driveway, which was a rather long gravel driveway, I drove down it, didn't see his car, turned around and went home. I thought long and hard about knocking on his door and asking his parents if they knew where he was, but his parents didn't know he was gay and didn't even know me, and I didn't want to get him into any trouble if they didn't know he went out partying. So I went back to my parents' home to see if maybe he had shown up there, which he wasn't. At this point, it's probably around midnight, and I had to work at 8 AM the next day, so I call it quits and go to sleep, sending out a final text saying that I hope he's okay. When I left to work in the morning, I had no texts or calls from him, so I continued to be worried. At my job, we had to put our cell phones in the officer while we were on the clock to make sure people weren't texting or anything on the job. At 1:30, when I got my lunch break, I checked my phone and had a missed call and a voicemail from him. I was utterly shocked when I listened to it. He basically called me a crazy psycho stalker for going to his work to see if he'd been there. His buddy said he saw me drive by the house he partied at. Yay, rural Idaho, and cars being so rare out there you notice them. And his sister saw me drive down their driveway and turn around. He said his work had called him to say I was looking for him. They failed to mention I was worried about him. GG. And the overabundance of calls and messages I sent him was creepy. In total, I had called 3 times, left no voicemails, which was obviously a bad idea in hindsight, and sent 10 texts over that 24-hour period. He said he was taken aback by the love you in the text and just wanted to clear his head for a bit, so he turned off his phone and went to his cousin's house and slept there. Forgot what day it was, so he didn't go into work. Forgot his phone was turned off the rest of the day. Remembered his phone was off by the next morning when his alarm didn't go off, saw all my texts and messages and freaked out. When he called his job to apologize for missing his shift, they told him about me showing up, which freaked him out even more. He told me he couldn't be with some possessive stalker creep and told me not to ever call or talk to him again. I was pretty upset, but only sent a message back that said, "I was only looking out for you, asshole," and never heard from him again. A week later, I found out from one of our mutual friends that a guy at the party had seen the text I sent and was threatening to out my ex. Seems like breaking up with me and denying everything was easier than continuing to hide our relationship. Moral of the story: don't date closeted crazes. When I broke up with my ex a couple years ago, I started having these weird dreams where I could hear consistent sobbing and sniffling. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper, so it didn't really cause any issues for me, and I would wake up without problems in the morning. This unique experience went on for a couple weeks. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and my room would smell like my ex perfume. Not only that, but my sheets looked like they were wet from tears. I asked my family if anything unusual was happening around the house at night, and nobody knew what I was talking about. Sometimes I would get in my car to leave for work in the morning, and it would completely stink like her. I figured I was just creating false sensations in my mind due to a rough breakup, like my brain was remembering an imaginary scent. This continued for weeks, until I decided to spend the night at my buddy's house down the street after drinking. I got a call from my mother whispering something about somebody going through the front door downstairs. I ran down the street with my buddy, busted in the front door, and ran upstairs. My ex was in my room going through my dresser when she saw me and started telling me to get out of my own room. I called the cops and she never came back. I later found out that she had made copies of all the keys in my house and car. She would spray her perfume around my things to keep the feelings for her alive. I haven't seen her since, but I've been told that she's continued doing this to other men. TL. Dr. Bitches be crazy. Edit. I forgot to include an eerie detail. Over a year later, when I moved out of my mom's, I found 2 love notes behind my headboard, still stained with teenage tears. She had placed them under my pillow and probably wondered why I never confronted her about it. I guess I would knock them away as I flailed around in bed restlessly. Gave me chills as I finally saw how obsessed she was due to the language she used in the notes. I'm a lucky man to still be here. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.